This is a production of Cornell University.
Thanks, Larry. As Larry mentioned, we're running a little late already, so I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly because I think it's probably a bit of review for most of you, and that will leave more time for questions and answers afterward. So in 2018, the federal Farm Bill required that all the industrial hemp research pilot programs that we had operated from 2017 up until 2021, they all had to expire at the end of 2021. It also said that in order to continue to administer a hemp program in the future, states either had to have a USDA approved hemp program plan, or the USDA was going to take over administration of the programs in the states. So we opted to submit a plan. Our plan was approved in October of 2021, and we have been running that program ever since. Our program plan can be found on the USDA hemp website. If you really want to get into the details, you can just Google USDA hemp program and you'll see all the state programs. So this is important, and I think you all should know, if you are a registered grower, if you have been, in the past in the pilot program, you should have received probably a dozen emails about this. But anyone who had the license in the pilot program, that license has expired regardless of the date on the authorization. That expired by act of federal law at the end of 2021. So if you want to grow this year, or God forbid you are growing this year under the old license, you need to get in touch with me quickly. Also new this year, we are requiring a license to sell hemp seed in New York State. That license is good for 3 years. There's a $100 application fee. The hemp seed can only be sold to registered hemp growers. We have a fairly detailed hemp program guidance document on our website. The website address is there at the bottom of the page. We also have adopted regulations to administer this program, and our regulations follow pretty much to the letter the requirements that the USDA has put in place and that the Farm Bill put in place. So we don't have a whole lot of superfluous regulations in there. We didn't regulate for fun. We regulated exactly what we needed to do. Those regulations are also found on our website. We're really happy to have the regulations in place because, as many of you know, in the past, you had to do the research partner agreements, which was more or less a contract between you and the state, and it outlined what you were responsible for and what we were responsible for. But there was still some room for ambiguity in there. The regs really have done away with that ambiguity, so we're pretty happy about that, and it hopefully should add clarity and certainty for all of our growers. So new in 2022 under the USDA approved program, in addition to submitting the application to us and the $500 application fee, you also have to submit an FBI background check. This is a federal requirement. The background check can't be any more than 60 days old at the time when you're submitting it. And the only thing that really will disqualify you on that background check from getting a license is a drug-related felony conviction within the last 10 years. I've seen a lot of rap sheets. It's unbelievable. But as long as you don't have a drug conviction, you're all set. You've got lots of convictions, but no felony drug convictions in the program. Also new this year, total THC is the standard. That's also a federal requirement. So we're testing for total THC, and the standard is still 0.3%. We will not be the primary sampler or tester as we have been in the past. So growers that are licensed in the program now will have to contract with a certified sampling agent. We have a list of those folks on our website. With Chuck Schmidt is with me here today. He coordinates that. How many, is it on here? We have probably 60, I believe, certified sampling agents, and we have 22 labs identified. They're listed on our website too, but that is a model that we had to enter into because the USDA requires now that every lot of hemp is sampled. And that was just more than we could do with the staff that we had. So we had to go to this privatized model, which is what the USDA does in states where they administer the program. You cannot sample your own crop. So you can't be a sampling agent and a grower, and growers can't sample their friend's crop. So nobody who's got a license can be a grower, and no employee of a licensed grower can be a sampler. Also new this year, and this is fairly standard practice with most farm operations, but a lot of folks that are growing hemp have not done other farming. You need to register your fields with the FSA, the Farm Service Agency in the county that you are growing in, or the county close by. Not every county has an FSA office anymore, but the fields need to be registered with the FSA, and then they report those locations to the USDA, who in turn reports them to the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency. So this is still a highly regulated plant, and hopefully that may change in the future. So here's some reasons that an application may be denied. If it's incorrect or incomplete, the drug-related felony that I mentioned before. If you don't submit the background check, that's a problem. If you're growing on a field that's registered to someone else, we can't have that, because if that field goes hot and you've got two people registered there, they're gonna do like this, who's responsible for the hot stuff. So you cannot have co-located registered fields. You cannot grow in an area that's zoned residential, and you cannot grow in a residence or in an attached garage. You wouldn't believe how many people want to grow in their bedrooms. It's very surprising to me, but it does come up. Failure to sign the application and failure to submit the application fee would also be reasons that we would have to deny it. I try to work with people if they have, other than the drug problem, I give people a chance to cure their applications and don't charge them an additional fee, but it just slows the process. All right, as I've mentioned every time I've ever given a presentation, it's really advisable to know where you're going to sell the stuff before you plant it. You don't want to be in a situation at harvest time and have a barn full of hemp and then call me and say, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't know. I'm not a broker. I'm just a regulator. So you really should know where you're going to sell it before you plant it. Also, zoning is a local issue in New York State. So you need to check with your town as to what the zoning is. The state does not administer zoning. New York is a home rule state, so the zoning is left to the localities. We have to inspect hemp growers at least once in the 3-year license cycle. You won't be getting inspected every year, although we do reserve the right to inspect you more than once in the 3-year cycle. Know the varieties, know the characteristics of the varieties that you're going to grow. Do they have a tendency to go hot? With this, this is a much more, things are much more strict than they used to be. We don't have any wiggle room really. So if you come back with a sample that's above 1%, you have to enter into a corrective action plan with us, and it's a 2-year process, and it's just a lot of headaches. And if the stuff comes back really hot, I'm compelled to notify the U.S. Attorney General, the New York State Attorney General, and law enforcement. So know what you're growing and keep an eye on it and make sure you're not going to get into trouble. Okay, having said all that, we're hoping in the coming years to be able to reduce the burden of sampling and testing by doing performance-based sampling, and that would exempt some people from sampling if they're growing varieties that are known to be compliant, don't have a tendency to go hot. It's also going to, fiber and grain varieties typically are not going to be as likely to go hot as CBD, so that would be a factor that would enter into it. If you're using certified seed, that would certainly help. And the history of the grower would help us make that determination as to whether or not you could be exempted. If you've been a compliant grower, you've got all your paperwork filed, that would really work in your favor. Okay, so far this year, because the program expired at the end of last year, at that time we were up to 745 growers that represented about 30,000 acres of registered land. But everyone's license expired, so we started from scratch. We now have 229 licensed growers with a little over 4,500 acres. outdoors and 2.5 million square feet indoors registered. And as I mentioned before, we have the 60 certified sampling agents and 22 identified labs. So, questions regarding marijuana and CBD processing or sales are not me. We do not do that at Ag and Markets, so those should be addressed to the Office of Cannabis Management, and Pat will be following me here shortly, so he can help you out a little bit if you have questions. But there's their information if you have marijuana-related questions. I can leave that up for a minute. And here's, if you do have questions about hemp, there's our website, our industrial hemp email address, and the hemp hotline. So feel free. It's a red phone. No, right, exactly. So if you do have questions, please, feel free to call anytime, and we'll see if we can help you out. And that's the end of that. So I can take questions now. If I don't get to your question, or if you'd rather not ask it in public, I'm going to be around most of the day, so you can hunt me down, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you. The question is if the zoning on your property is residential and agriculture, and a lot of zoning is that. It's residential, but it allows some agricultural uses, that would be okay. But if it's strictly residential, then it's not allowed. So that's an issue. You want to make sure you check with your town zoning office. No. Oh, the question was what if you are in the Adirondack Park? To my knowledge, there's no restriction on growing. Hemp is a statutorily recognized agricultural crop now, so if you could, it's just like growing corn or anything else. So the zoning of the parcel. Okay, so when people apply to us for a license, they have to register the fields on which they intend to grow hemp. So they provide the GPS coordinates for each field that they want to grow on. So it's up to you as the property owner or a lessee or leaser of property that you just tell us whatever field you want to grow on, provide us with the GPS coordinates and the acreage of the field. That's another thing I mentioned. GPS coordinates are far and away the thing that holds up more applications than anything else. That people just are not getting the GPS right. An easy way to do it is go on Google Maps, put in your address, you click on the little satellite photo that pops up in the bottom of the screen. You can zoom into your exact field and right click on the center of the field, just right click on your cursor, the GPS coordinates pop up. Mary? No. So the question was, do you have to notify me every year of the field location? The license is good for 3 years. So actually you'll have to do a planting report with us and you have to register your field with the FSA. So I guess, yes, we would get that information each year, but there's no requirement that you do any amendment or any extra application with us. So the question is there any, what's the cost for sampling and testing? And is there a circumstance where you wouldn't have to have testing done if you're a researcher or a breeder? The cost for the sampling is something that you would arrive at with your sampling agent. There's no set cost. We don't dictate what those people are charging. And the labs similarly are, whatever the labs are charging. If when you apply for a research license, there will be some performance-based sampling that you could do. You could do less. You may be exempt entirely. However, if you have signed up for a research license, nothing you grow can move into commerce. So you can't sell anything. So it's really research. Did that answer your question? Yeah. So yes, that would definitely count against you. Yeah, if you're not registered as a researcher, your crop has to be sampled and tested, and that's the onus that the USDA has put on us.
If I can interrupt, I think we have some registered sampling agents in the room. So part of the purpose of this event is networking. So if you're a registered sampling agent, raise your hand or stand up. Okay, I see a couple. You see Tony, I know, is a registered sampling agent and a Cornell graduate. So if you have not contracted with a sampling agent yet and you're getting ready to harvest very soon, there are at least a couple of them here. Another question?
Chuck, do you know? I don't.
The question was on typical cost of coming out and doing the sampling. Sampling agents have to buy some supplies. They have to have insurance. Some of them will charge for mileage, not mileage. We have sampling agents that cover every county in the state. So if they're charging mileage, you want to look for an agent in your county. Again, they work as independent contractors. We can't tell them what to charge, but we do give them parameters of things that they need to charge for their time and whatnot. So typically, I would say it's somewhere around, and again, this is a ballpark number, but somewhere around $200, $250 to come out and have a sample taken and sent to the lab. Most of the lab tests, if you're just looking to do a cannabinoid profile, I think they run them around $65, $75. But again, that's dependent on the lab that you choose. And we have labs in New York State and labs in many other states. So it doesn't necessarily have to be tested in New York State. And you'll see on the website, there's probably 7 or 8 different states listed with labs as well. All the sampling agents are primarily in New York State. I think there's 1 or 2 that live in bordering states, but most of them are still in New York State. Does that answer your question?
Thanks. How are we doing on time?
Yeah, we're getting close to out of time here. Have time for one more question if there is one. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So the question is, you mean between CBD and fiber and grain hemp? Yeah, so
Fiber, which gets hot, and that's not what you were intending to use it for anyway.
right, well, we would hope that for the fiber and grain varieties, typically they're not like CBD varieties and they don't tend to go hot as often. So this will be part of the performance-based sampling program that we're establishing. We have to have enough data to be able to justify that to the USDA. So we're still collecting data on varieties. Once we have that data combined with, a list of certified seed and then also how, if the grower has been a good actor in the past, those things will all be taken into consideration. And so the fiber and grain varieties will likely be, they would be the ones to more likely be excused from sampling than the CBD varieties, for instance. But that doesn't mean that no CBD varieties will be, excused. It's possible. I'm going to be around, so you can ask me questions all day if you like.
Okay, thanks very much, Tim.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.